Shakespeare asked, "What is in a name?" through one of his characters in a play. A rose would smell the same if we call it by another name. People cannot be treated differently, subjected to the discrimination, or refuse access to the basic human right based solely on their sexual preference. Human rights are fundamentally about being born equal. Therefore, everyone should be treated equally and with respect. Homosexuality means sexual desire or behavior directed towards one's gender. It is not a foreign concept. It has been prevalent in India for a long period of time. Ancient texts like Rig Veda says, Vikruti evam prakriti, which means diversity is what is nature all about. Srimad Bhagavatam also refers to the homosexuals. Homosexuality has existed since the dawn of creation. Amara Das Wilhelm, in her book, compiled years of extensive research. She proved that homosexuals and the third genders were not only present in Indian society back then, but also widely accepted. However, the experiences lost their significance with the arrival of British colonialism. Now the question arises, is homosexuality really unnatural?
Well, on the question of marriage equality, you're right. I took a position about, I think, 3, 4, 5 months ago, well before coming back to the Prime Ministership, because I concluded in my conscience, through an informed conscience and a Christian conscience, it was the right thing to do. And let me tell you why. Number one, I do not believe people when they are born choose their sexuality. They are gay if they are born gay. You don't decide at some later stage in life to be one thing or the other. It is how people are built. And therefore, the idea that this is somehow an abnormal condition is just wrong. I don't get that. I think that is just a completely ill-founded view. Secondly, if you accept that it is natural and normal for someone to be gay, because that's the way they are, then it follows from that I don't think it is right to say that if these two folk here who are in love with each other and are of the same gender should be denied the opportunity for legal recognition of the duration of their relationship by having marriage equality. If you accept that, if your starting point is that homosexuality is abnormal, I don't know.
The Indian Penal Code was enacted in 1860. Victorian era draconian law criminalized homosexuality. The law relegated some people to inferior status based solely on how they looked or whom they loved. It invaded their privacy and degraded their dignity. Especially, sexual orientation or gender identity should not be deciding factor in determining the role play of any individual in progressive society, but Section 377 of Indian Penal Code 1860 did that. The act of engaging in sexual activities with the same gender was considered against the nature's order. However, this is a complete bizarre argument because homosexuality exists in at least 1500 species of animals, especially dolphins. So, if it is prevalent in so many species, then how a single species, that is human being, declared to be against nature? Even though we might call ourselves an advanced and modern generation, it is disheartening to see the atrocity faced by the people belonging to the LGBTQ community in different places and environments. Since the country's coronavirus lockdown, the number of people inflicting the self-harm or having suicidal thoughts is on the rise. The entertainment industries has also recognized the allegation faced by these people, and celluloids has presented the unheard voice in the movie, like badhai, shubh, mangal, jyada, sawdhaan, kanchana, and Oscar-winning movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which bagged 7 awards in the prestigious events, has made a reference to the same. According to the UNESCO report of 2018, children belonging to the LGBTQ face bullying in the schools, colleges, etc. and are discriminated against. This act of bullying and discrimination leaves a permanent scar on their life and often takes years to recover.
Bullying is one of those things that every teacher is seeking an answer for. But the bullying of LGBTQ+ students poses a unique problem because it means addressing harassment to an entire marginalized group. The harm in these cases is not just between the bully and the one being bullied. It's a whole societal system.
Years to recover. If a person declares himself or is found to belong from the LGBTQ community, then a bounty is set for a secret honor killing. Recently, many people have become the victim of the honor killing. LGBTQ people not only face the discrimination in the schools and colleges, but the act does not end even after their education. They are also discriminated against while getting the job, as no employer wants to hire the person with a different sexual preference. This idea does not sit well with the society and is often questioned by other employers. Not get the better paying jobs and are stuck in the poverty's vicious circle. Non-acceptability of the LGBTQ is not only prevalent in rural areas but also in urban families. as urban families are more concerned about their status in the society and often throw them out of their houses to prevent their social status when they find out that their child is LGBTQ community. LGBTQ people are often thrown into the correction centers where they are administered the psychotic drugs as a part of the corrective therapy for homosexuality, leading them to become the addictive to the drug. Lack of family support can be a serious blow to the mental and physical health of LGBTQ persons in a country where rigorous social and cultural norms govern the conditions of education, employment, and marriage. Depression, suicidal thoughts, and psychosomatic illness are frequent brought on by the isolation and pressure to fit in. To escape the intense pressure of getting married and having children, many of them would like to relocate to another city. Many limitations are placed on how they can dress and behave with their partners by the family who accept their identities. Online communities and social media have proved accessible alternatives to create a community outside the family in the lack of family support. The LGBTQ community is vulnerable to suicidality. This is reality we all need to wake up and respond to. Broad-based program for the suicidal prevention in the community will not work because most of them are designed imagining cis-heterosexual person as the target. It will not account for the stresses that a person from the community experiences just for being who they are, or perhaps for who they are not. In May 2020, the death of 21-year-old Anjana Harish horrified the country. Anjana had been forced to undergo a conventional therapy regime by her family to cure her bisexuality. Before she died by the suicide, she had posted on social media about being forced to go to a rehab center where she was plied with the medication that made her corgi. Anjana's death shone a spotlight on unspecific, illegal and inhuman nature of such treatments. Activist mental health practitioners and official bodies were united in decrying these practices and highlighting this illegal nature. But the conversation around conversion therapy tend to the focus on the technicalities or the illegal or pseudoscientific nature of these treatments. Meanwhile, an overall mindset gap is accepting sexualities and genders continue to put queer and trans people on risk. On 22 July 2011, two women, Savita and Beena, shocked the world by becoming the first lesbian couple to marry in India. They both knew each other from childhood. Savita was forced into an arranged marriage in 2010 with a police officer from her village. After 5 months of marriage, she ran away because of repeated abuse by her husband and in-laws. The marriage was dissolved by the local panchayat. Her uncle tried to marry her again. After that, Savita decided to kill herself but was saved by Beena. There was an open declaration in the village to kill Savita, but Beena took Savita to her house to protect her. Later, they both filed an affidavit in the Gurgaon court with evidence that they are married as husband and wife. In the additional session, Judge Vimal Kumar stated that Veena and Savita had filed an affidavit that they were married. However, he did not comment it on the marriage validity. In other words, not explicitly accepting the union but not rejecting it altogether. Gurgaon Court, in its order based on 2009 ruling from Punjab and Haryana High Court to ensure help and assist runaway couples and based on Nas Foundation case on 25 July. After 8 years of battle, when the LGBTQ community let out a sigh of relief, various individuals and the faith-based group outrightly rejected the ideas of discriminalizing the homosexual relationships as held by the Delhi High Court in 2009. They cited the India's rich history bath in the ethic and tradition. They filed an appeal before the Supreme Court of India to reconsider Section 377 constitutionality. The judgment of Delhi High Court was overturned and homosexuality was decriminalized. The Supreme Court ignored the basic fundamental rights just because LGBT constitute a minority, bypassing the essence of Indian Constitution. But the silver lining of judgment was that instead of stopping the LGBT movement, it rekindled a new wave of activism in India. The Supreme Court's regressive judgment faced immense criticism from every nook and corner for erasing the homosexuals' basic human rights. The result was that public conversation about LGBT rights increased in India. Now let's talk about a pressing issue that requires our attention: crime against LGBTQ individuals in India. Through case studies and real-life examples, let's dig into the harsh reality faced by LGBTQ community and the need for the justice and action to combat discrimination, violence and injustice. Let's start with the story of Jennifer. She was just 14. An ambulance arrived at the doorstep of her biological family's household in Kerala. A few minutes later, a group of people entered the house, faced she had never seen before. They approached her calmly, but as she stepped back to resist the invasion, they became aggressive. They drugged her, picked her up, put into the ambulance and drove her to the place where she would be subjected to the worst from the torture. Jennifer was taken to what a colloquial called a conversion therapy center. However, she described it as an other general hospital with medical staff, psychiatrists, and even priests. It was harder for her to recall exactly how long she stayed there. She lost track of time, she said, perhaps because of heavy doses of hallucinogens, testosterone, and other drugs that were administered to her, all to make her conform to the gender identity her biological family desires. Jennifer is one of the many of the LGBTQ communities who are subjected to the uncodified crimes against body and mind by their biological families. State families, societies, nexus of the heterosexual communities tries to control and attack the very being of the LGBTQ community through uncodified crimes such as conversion therapies, surveillance, and missing person complaints. People who identify as the sexual minorities are not only dehumanized by the state families society nexus, but are also treated as the lesser citizens, incapable of equal agencies and right by the justice family agents. Another such example is the story of Sanjeet Mondal. On Monday night at around 9 p.m., he was returning from a friend's house in the Chinar Park area when 6-7 policemen illegally caught hold of him. I had a brutal experience but did not know my fault. These men forcefully dragged me and started beating me without any reason. They showed me their identity cards which were from the police department. Suddenly, some motorbikes policemen came and forcefully tied my face and put me on the motorbike. When I refused to abide their instructions, they started beating me up brutally, said Sanjeet in an interview with the Mirror. He claimed that a police vehicle arrived with the uniformed police personnel and took him to the Narayan police station. They slapped me and also beat me on my head. They threatened to break my bones. Sanjeet alleged that initially he thought he was arrested because he was wearing earrings, has long hairs. I was terrified by the flow of events. After I was taken to the police station, they snatched my mobile phone and went through my phone gallery. Some policemen assembled and made fun of me. They abused me verbally as I am gay, calling me chakka and using another derogatory terms. They questioned why I have long hairs. They were forcing me to confess that I was doing something wrong and solicitation for the prostitution. I did not do any wrong thing and did not confess any false crime, Sanjeet claimed. From these case studies we have examined reveal the stark reality crimes against LGBTQ individuals in India. It is our responsibility to demand justice, raise awareness and take action to create a more inclusive and accepting society where the rights and dignity of every individual, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity, are respected and protected. The prominent activists during the mass LGBT movement belong to transgender community, as they have never been considered a part of society and have always been subjected to exploitation, exclusion, humiliation and violence either in the hands of society or the authorities in power. The constant rejection and not having access to the resources, these people often resort to beggary or prostitution. This makes them more vulnerable to discrimination and crimes such as human trafficking. But 2014 Supreme Court ruling brought an unexpected ray of hope. For the first time in history, they were recognized as the third gender. The judgment also laid down the framework to guarantee the transgender community a basic human rights, which can be summarized as follows. The Supreme Court held that the non-recognition of the identities violated Article 14, 15, 16 and 21 of Indian Constitution. The Supreme Court further directed the Government of India to treat the third gender as an economically and socially backward classes, giving them equal opportunity in education and employment. Also, the third gender be categorized as OBC to confirm the registration. The court also noted that conflict between birth gender and identity is not a pathological condition. In simple words, it means that the court recognized the difference between the gender and biological components. After this judgment, they have a constitutional rights to identify and register themselves as third gender. Apart from this, various state governments took small steps to benefit the transgender population by making policies on health and housing. However, a major blow to the judgmental came after the passing of the Transgender Personal Bill in 2018. As the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Bill 2019 protects the rights of transgender community from discrimination in employment and education, healthcare and access to the government or private institutions. But in the name of empowering the community, the bill further exposed them to institutional oppression and dehumanized their bodies and identity. Some bills' lacunas are: as per the bill, the change of gender identity in documents can only be done after the proof of gender reassessment surgery. This must be certified by the district magistrate. This not only affects the transgender person's autonomy and privacy, but also exposes them to harassment at the hand of authorities. As per the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill 2019, sexual abuse against transgender people is punishable by only 2-year prison. There are no provision about scholarship, reservations, or changing the school curriculum to make it LGBT inclusive. The 5-judge bench finally gave its verdict on 6 September 2018 and unanimously held that Section 377 is vague and does not create intelligible distinctions between what is natural and what is unnatural. Sexual orientation is an inherent part of self-identity, and invalidating it denies the life rights. Not giving them the basic rights just because they constitute a minuscule section of the population cannot be a valid justification to deny them this right. It was also emphasized that discrimination based on sexual orientation is unconstitutional. This is because sexual orientation is a natural phenomena as proven by scientific and biological facts. The Supreme Court also directed the government to create public awareness regarding LGBT rights and eliminate stigma. There is not an iota of doubt regarding the fact that all judgment related to LGBT people will shape the future of their rights movement in India. The significance of the Nalsa judgment and Navtej Singh Johor's judgment is progressive because they have even laid down the essential groundwork to confer a host of other civil rights which were earlier not available to LGBT community but are ordinarily enjoyed by the heterosexual persons and cisgender persons. These civil rights include the right to marriage, right to adoption, right against discrimination, freedom from the sexual assault, etc. Despite a Supreme Court ruling, society must not discriminate against LGBTQ people and ensure that they feel included in the society. So the battle has not yet been won, and there is a long way to go before the India can truly be described as the inclusive country.